Welcome to the Brew. Lex is not here today, so we are going to do our best. Excitingly, we have Paulina back with us, and she is going to go over what is an activist investor. She's going over Elliot Management, what is Nelson Peltz doing, and much, much more. So stay tuned. Here we go. Hello, Paulina.
Hey, Molly, how's it going?
So well. So we have a lot on tap today. This is going to be an exciting show. You're even telling us what's going on with Disney, and there might be a little bit of a battle with Nelson Peltz. But first, let's do a full gamut of what is an activist investor.
Yes, I think getting the definitions out of the way is very important. So activist investors, they could either be an individual or they could be an investment firm like a hedge fund. And what these activist investors or firms do, they buy a large amount of the company's stock so they can kind of influence or change how the company is being run or managed. And that's because they see massive potential in the company's growth that isn't currently being achieved. So that could mean the activist wants to push for changes in the company's strategic direction or how they operate, maybe even changes in management, changes to the board of directors, anything that will kind of end up creating more shareholder value. So in short, that's kind of what an activist investor is. And throughout 2023, we've seen a lot of shareholder activism. It's been on the rise because there's so much economic uncertainty. We have a changing landscape on a regulatory basis, and companies, they're being targeted by these activist investors. And I think it's an important topic to touch on today.
And how successful, I mean, with all that going on, how are they moving the needle? How successful are they?
Yeah, well, so companies that work with activist investors, they tend to outperform their sectors initially. So I was looking at some data from Goldman Sachs, who wrote a report on this topic, and they found that the median stock targeted by activist investors outperforms by 3 percentage points in the week after an activist investor launches a campaign. But excess returns, they say, are short-lived and they turn negative after 6 months. So it seems like in the short term, when an activist investor gets involved, there's a lot of hype, and Wall Street is kind of bullish because they think that there could be some upside in the stock. But it seems like that enthusiasm kind of wanes over time. So that's what Goldman found, and I think that's what's kind of being reflected in some of the stocks we're going to be talking about today too.
Okay, and specifically Elliot Management you bring up. So tell us about that. Where are they in this?
Yeah, so Elliot Management is a well-known activist firm. The firm has over $50 billion in investments, and they took earlier this year a multi-billion-dollar stake in Salesforce in January, to be specific. And there were actually a bunch of other activist firms that piled on right after them. Starboard Value was one. Third Point is also a well-known activist investor, and a bunch of other ones. And all these activist investors, they came together, but Elliott Management, got a lot of attention here. They put pressure on CEO Mark Benioff, who also founded the company, to cut costs and improve the company's profitability and capital returns to shareholders. And it all kind of started, as I said, at the beginning of this year, when there was a bunch of different mishaps in the company. So what happened was there was failed succession planning. CEO Mark Benioff was supposed to leave his job at the helm, but he actually ended up coming back. The stock, Salesforce stock, it fell almost 50% in 2022. And more broadly, there was a lot of financial challenges that the company had. So these activist investors, they saw all this, and they wanted to address the issues because they thought that there's so much potential happening at Salesforce, but it's just not being seen. So that's what happened there. And I can go into further detail if you want.
Oh, we definitely want. Okay, let's deep dive. Let's deep
All
dive.
right. So what happened was, as I said, there was financial challenges, cost cuts, share buybacks, and stronger than expected earnings was something that actually followed when all these activist investors came in, and that kind of pulled these activist investors to kind of step back. But before that happened, you had activist firms like Elliot. They were trying to seek a board on Salesforce's board of directors, and they wanted to improve the company's stock price. But when the company started turning around and some of the demands that the activists were pushing for, the firms backed off, and Elliot no longer wanted to pursue board elections. So I would say this is an example of where activist investors participated, and there was a positive outcome for both the company and the activist investors, because everyone makes money and everyone is happy. And actually, I can take a look at how Salesforce stock has been performing this year. I think it's been on significantly better than last year, but that's kind of the outcome of.
While you're looking that up, when a lot of people will hear activist investors, and some of them will just think of ESG pops into our minds. And so I know Salesforce is in the World Economic Forum, and they are heavily pushing that. So tell the difference. So we're just focusing on, someone like you mentioned that you're going to talk about. So we'll just briefly, Nelson Peltz has been well known for investigating into possible theories that might be on the plate to see if they have any teeth. And so he doesn't disregard those. And so he really seems, like you mentioned, more of the daily operations and the real functionality and the real value in the company and improving that versus ESG. So we're just focusing on that. But what are your comments on ESG?
Yeah, I think you can think of kind of an activist investor as a broad term. Today we're more focused on activist investors who are taking large stakes in these public companies. But you can also think of an activist investor like a regular retail investor who wants to align their investments with their personal values, such as ESG factors, which are heavily being pushed on companies. And they might go on annual shareholder meetings and voice their opinions about how they think a company should adjust their management strategies to align to more ESG friendly policies. But CEOs have been vocal. In particular, Elon Musk has been very vocal about his distaste of ESG, especially he was saying how tobacco companies, for example, have better sustainability scores than Tesla, which is an EV company that's supposedly
interesting,
good for the environment. So yeah, you can kind of think of activist investors as twofold: retail versus the more hedge fund activist investment. And yeah, Disney's proxy battle that it's having with Nelson Peltz's Tradier management is kind of similar to that.
So, and just one more activist investor, I think this goes to the point where trading seems to be changing. So we're really starting to understand that a trade is a vote. And when you look, there's a great show on HBO called Gaming Wall Street. I know we've seen it, but maybe just point everyone to that. That's a great synopsis of what happened with GameStop. And you have these brand new traders, some advanced traders, writing white papers who really support companies and can come in and in their own fashion become an activist, pro company, pro operations. It's not necessarily anything altruistic, whichever concept that ESG might be pushing on the peripheral. When you dig deep into ESG, it seems to be something a little bit different when you dive into that. So tell us about Nelson Peltz and Disney. And I know Nelson Peltz has had a history, so maybe let us in and tell us how he did in the past and how you think he'll do going forward.
Yeah, I wanted to offer this activist investor example
Oh, great.
that kind of didn't go as smoothly as, let's say, a Salesforce. So, activist investor Nelson Peltz, he co-founded his firm Treon Management, and he has been really vocal about his disappointment with Disney CEO Bob Iger and his management of the company. Bob Iger came back after he stepped away. And there was a lot of scrutiny around his decisions and how the turnaround of the company wasn't happening quickly enough. And Nelson Peltz was the first to come out and say how the company needed to cut costs to boost profits. Peltz was also critical of Disney's $71 billion acquisition of Fox, which happened back in 2019. And he also said that there was just poor governance overall due to the succession planning. And all of this, he said, dropped shareholder value. And if you take a look at the stock chart over the past 5 years, you can see how the stock has really been underperforming. And all of this has led to the climax of a proxy fight. So Nelson Peltz, earlier this year, he launched a proxy fight for multiple seats on Disney's board, and that happened in February. So what happened after that was Disney rejected him. But in the meantime, Iger, the CEO of Disney, he heard Peltz's demands, and he did a few actions to kind of appease him. So he cut 7,000 jobs from the company. He initiated a over $5 billion cost-cutting program across the company. There was also a restructuring of Disney as well that happened throughout 2023. After that, actually, Disney Peltz, he declared the proxy fight over. So that was big news. I actually have been writing a series of articles about this, and it was like breaking news when he came. Peltz actually came on CNBC and said, "I declare this proxy fight over because Bob Iger has addressed the things that we wanted the company to change." However, Peltz actually reignited this proxy fight within the last month in October. And that's after Treon Management increased this stake in Disney. So it seems like he's continuing to push for multiple board seats. And so this story is still unfolding, and really curious to see how far Peltz is going to take his proxy battle.
Okay, and then just give us a quick brief overall. Tell us about what's the process of getting a board seat? What is proxy? So just for anyone who doesn't know what that is, what is a proxy vote?
Yeah, a proxy battle is when, in this case, this activist firm, Treon Management, they are wanting changes at the company, and they're fighting for seats on the company's board of directors. And they went through a whole campaign. They put out statements on their website. They even initiated a kind of a communications campaign to rally the nomination of Nelson Peltz on Disney's board of directors. Actually, some of those people on the communication side of things, they reached out to me to kind of stay in contact as I was writing some of these articles, and they documented these on official SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission.
Oh my gosh!
Documents.
Okay, just to pause you, where do we find those articles if we want to read those if we're investigating?
You can actually find, you can find those on the official SEC documents when you search anything about Disney and the proxy battle that Nelson Peltz is having with Disney. But you can also go on CNBC.com and just type my name, and those articles will be out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. And then so there's been a history. I think there was something with DuPont. What was that about?
Yeah, so this isn't Nelson Peltz's first rodeo. He has launched proxy battles before and won. And one example is DuPont. Um, and and so and like I said, his fight is not over. There are elections happening for Disney, for Disney's board. They started, I believe, on December 4th, and they go up until January 4th. So Peltz is kind of seeing that open window as an opportunity to see if he can get enough votes and have a position on the board. So that's kind of his next maneuver from there. But if you think about it, it's just kind of taking an objective view here. It's curious why Bob Iger is so kind of resistant to Nelson Peltz, because he has skin in the game. He is someone who is kind of putting his money where his mouth is. He wants the company to do well because he is an investor and he wants to make money, but that is also going to benefit other shareholders, even regular shareholders, because if the company does well, then the stock's price is going to follow with it. And that's what shareholders want. They want to see more value created at the company and for the stock's price to perform better. But there is a lot of resistance at Disney. They initially said that Peltz is not fit for the board because he doesn't have experience as it relates to working with media companies. But if you look at Nelson Peltz's career, he has been really focused on consumer companies. And if you think about it, Disney is kind of a consumer company as well. So there's something else going on as to why Disney doesn't want Peltz. So it's curious.
For the next season of Peltz Profiles. Okay, so you can also just, hey, if you wanna knock on their door, go to Club 33 at Disney if you have something to say, and it's right above Cafe Orleans, who's actually Club 33. So I wonder if any of the head guys are hanging out there. Just slip in, your vote for Nelson Peltz on the board. We'll find out in January. So where do you see the future of activist investors? And it's interesting. How do Disney itself have they pushed anything themselves? Have they lost or gained money in their recent movies? Have their movies changed as far as pushing a narrative? What do you see on that? Is in juxtapose a behind the scenes investor being an activist investor? We're talking about operations, but if we're talking also including the ESG component, how do you see these companies pushing a narrative, and how does that affect operations?
Yeah, there have been many challenges, at Disney, and you can just see that by the box office numbers. They have been underperforming on new releases, and that is a huge disappointment because it's one of the key drivers of Disney's revenue. And these are things that activist investors look at and they get really disappointed. It's important to consider what's happening in the economy more broadly. There's a lot of pressure on the consumer, and that in some definitely has an influence on how the company performs. But another aspect is, the changing environment. There's a push from linear TV to streaming. And so Disney is trying to successfully make that transition. But in the meantime, it's losing money in its linear business at the same time as it makes that transition to Disney Plus, which is their streaming platform. That is still unprofitable. They expect Disney Plus to be profitable by the end of fiscal 2024. So these are key areas of the business that are really not performing well. And you have someone like Peltz coming in trying to help, trying to see how this can turn around. Right now, the company has really been pushing for cost cuts as a way to improve that profitability and profit margins, but it seems like there needs a lot more to be done in order for there to be a significant change at the company.
Okay, and just a quick touch on Constellation. So what game plan do they have in all of this?
Yeah, so Constellation Brands, that's a beverage company, and it actually is a company that has been performing pretty well this year. It gained more, a bit of market share after a company like Anheuser-Busch, they launched a campaign with Dylan Mulvaney, who is a trans person, and that clearly kind of pushed away some of Bud Light's consumers. And as a result, Corona, Modelo Especial, and Pacifico, these are Constellation Brands' top performing beers. They gain market share as a result. But not only them, it was Molson Coors also gained market share as a result of that too.
Are you taunting us because it's Friday? Are you taunting us? Are we talking beer already? Right. Okay, I'm
yeah,
totally,
we are.
I'm in there. I'm game. Okay, how is this playing out? So the elections are coming up. This is a really prevalent. It's on the forefront. So how is this going to play out in the elections? What do you see happening there? Any players?
Yeah, I think that talking about some of the factors that we touched on previously, like ESG, is a topic of contention. It's a tense topic to discuss, and there are, I think this is clearly going to be a key focus on the 2024 election. We've already been seeing some of that commentary come out in debates. We've seen, one of the most vocal candidates has been Vivek Ramaswamy, who has come out and come out against ESG. He actually has a firm that was created to directly combat ESG. And so I think that, he is a prominent person in the business community. So he has firsthand experience about how all this works. But I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about this and how some of these factors that are pushed by, big institutions, and how that's been impacting companies moving forward.
This is incredible. Okay, I love these. Thank you, Paulina. I just love Fridays. So go check out Paulina's articles, because she has really done her due diligence on this. So if you're looking to invest, make sure you follow her. We're going to put that link right below. So take a look at this link right here. And thank you again, Paulina, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thanks, Molly. I'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.